Hello and welcome to the Authenticity Calling podcast. If this is your first time, I'm so happy that you finally arrived. This podcast has been around for about a year now. It's been about 5 years in coming. It was a vision I had in 2020 as I started to get to know a lot of different people and really started to create a community of conscious entrepreneurs and professionals and individuals who are in this coaching space, but also in the professional healthcare space. And so every conversation I had was so inspiring. It was so motivational and it was so wonderful that I thought, wow, every single time I hung up, I thought this should have been a podcast. And so over the years, I kept hearing that same calling again and again and again. And so finally, I decided it's time. Actually, last year, December 31st, 2023, it would have been. I knew that the next day, January 1st, I had to podcast my first episode. So this is how the podcast came about. I'm your host, Ralitza Spasova. I am so honored today to be called to share with you on International Women's Day. And I know it's a little bit after midnight, so we've already passed the day. But I have been feeling and seeing and hearing this calling to honor the 22nd gene key today. And for those of you that know, it's one of those things. If you know, you know. So if you don't know, I highly recommend you go to the Gene Keys website, genekeys.com, and you can actually create your own profile. And it's based on the date and time and location that you're born. So it is based on astrology. It's also based on the ancient I Ching. And the Gene Keys is actually a wisdom that was downloaded. It was spiritually brought to Richard Rudd. This is the book. And it is such a beautiful inner standing of who we are and how we came here and what we're here to learn and transform. If I had to put it in simple terms, I would say that is the essence of the Gene Keys. And Richard Rudd does a beautiful job explaining it and how it came about and what we're meant to do with it. So I will leave you to do your own research, to go on the website, to search YouTube. There's events that are up on Gaia. So there's a ton of information out on the Gene Keys. But this is the book. This is the main book of the Gene Keys, and it's called Embracing Your Higher Purpose. So as you create your hologenic profile, and you don't have to do anything except type in your date of birth and your time and your location, it actually gives you different spheres. And each of these spheres have a shadow, a gift, and a siddhi. And the shadow is, from my understanding, and I'm sure it's going to be my limited understanding and explanation, but it's meant to be embraced. It's meant to be really, truly seen and honored. And when we're able to embrace and see ourselves in the shadow and really accept that this shadow is part of our being, it actually so beautifully transforms into the gift. And life keeps molding and shifting and twisting and turning. And so at some points, we end up back in our shadows. As soon as we think that we've transformed the shadow into the gift, something will happen and it'll throw us off. And through the siddhi, actually, we're meant to really see and feel and embody and be called out of our shadow and into our gift. And it's that moment of awareness, that moment of compassion that we get to have with ourselves, where we go from the shadow into the gift. And it's this bittersweet moment of, depending on the shadow, sometimes it's so gut wrenching to be in it and then to realize, oh my gosh, this is actually such a gift. So a lot of times in my coaching, I remind clients that our shadows, the parts of us that we're not willing to admit that we have, even sometimes, they are our greatest gift. So it's no different here. And for the past few days, for the past few months, actually, I met the Gene Keys last year. They came into my life, and I finally created my own profile. I have a Gene Keys guide who read my Gene Keys to me. And it's so interesting because I was just starting one of the Sexy Successful masterminds for women. And I just thought it would be so beautiful to know my pearl sequence before actually going into this this mastermind, because I just wanted to be so deeply in integrity, and I wanted to bring everything that was calling me forward for the women that were in this group. And so I asked my guide to actually go backwards. So usually most people would start with their activation sequence. Truly, there's no real, strict way to do it. But for me, it was very clear that I had to do the pearl first. And as we went through my Gene Keys, and as we moved from pearl into the Venus sequence, and then into the activation sequence, into the genius, my Gene Keys guide said, "Oh, this makes perfect sense that you're reading it backwards, because you show up first for, for the integrity, for the community, for the greatest good of all, and then you move to, taking care of your relationships, and then you take care of yourself. So this makes perfect sense." And, part of that is that I have the 22nd Gene Key in my pearl. I actually have it twice. And so the interesting part is that I haven't been able to get through the transmission of the 22nd Gene Key. So for me, being called to do this as a live and to share this with you now is such a deep honor. It is such a beautiful privilege, and it is such a gift. And I've actually shared this Gene Key with all of the groups that I'm in this year specifically. And it is just asking to be, it's asking to be honored. It is asking to be embodied. And it is really, truly, deeply here. It is here within all of us, and it is rising up. It is coming down and rising up within us. And it's this meeting point. We're coming to this meeting point of the 22nd Gene Key, where it's about to just like open up and blossom and flourish within all of us. And so it is really asking to be deeply, sacredly received and held with such gentleness, such beauty, such grace. And the gift, the Siddhi, is that it's grace. And so when the 22nd Gene Key comes into your life, it really is, it asks you to slow down, and it asks you to be present, and it asks you to really, truly, deeply honor all parts of yourself. And so if you are coming across this YouTube live, welcome. Thank you for being here. If you're watching it as a replay, please let me know how it lands for you. I'd be really, really curious, really honored, really grateful to know if this serves you. I'm doing this without permission. I don't know that if we have to seek permission. I'll beg for mercy afterwards if I have to. I hope I don't overstep in reading this, but it's been calling and calling and calling. And actually, that's why I'm here at 1 o'clock in the morning, because it wouldn't let me go to sleep until I shared it. So here we are. Buckle up. It's going to be an interesting ride. So before we start, actually, I will say that if you're going to come on this journey, be ready to actually experience these transmissions and translations in your life as they land within you. Because as you take them in and as you breathe them in and as you digest this wisdom, this knowledge, this is so much more than information. It's inner transformation, truly. You will be called to experience it in your lifetime. And so don't rush through it. And at the same time, don't do what I did, which is pause in the shadow, because it'll keep showing up over and over and over again. So if you're going to start this journey, let's commit to seeing it through. Okay, that's what I'll say. That's what's coming through. That's what I'll leave you with. So thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting me to share this with you. So I have the Gene Keys book. I also have the 7 Sacred Seals, which is another book by Richard Rudd, and it's Portals to Grace. And it talks about the 7 Sacred Seals, which the 22nd Gene Key encompasses. And so I just trusted that I was meant to bring it all into the room. So let's see where we get with it today. The 22nd Gene Key, Grace Under Pressure. The programming partner is the 47th Gene Key, and it's part of the codon ring of the Ring of Divinity, which is made up of the 22nd, the 36th, the 37th, and the 63rd Gene Keys. Its physiology is in the solar plexus, in the cranial ganglia, and the amino acid is proline. So as we mentioned already, the shadow is dishonor, the gift is graciousness, and the siddhi is grace. Introduction to the 22nd Gene Key, the sweetness of suffering. The 64 gene keys represent the seed of a brand new synthesis coming into the world. It is important to clarify here that it is not the knowledge of the gene keys themselves that is new, but the revelation together as a complete matrix of the human evolutionary program. Each gene key is a portal to an encyclopedia of timeless knowledge and wisdom. Deep contemplation and meditation on the gene keys will open up a new world to you. There is no question that cannot be answered by them, since all the answers are inside you. Furthermore, as you enter the higher frequencies of the gene keys, the questions themselves begin to drop away, and the higher states reveal themselves from within your very own DNA. At this stage in your evolution, the knowledge itself ceases to hold any real interest, and you see it as nothing more than a bridge that you can now discard. This is reflected in the Buddha's own timeless words. My teaching is a raft whereon men may reach the far shore. The sad fact is that so many mistake the raft for the shore. The 22nd gene key is special within the overall matrix of the 64 gene keys, containing a highly specific teaching and a powerful transmission. The transmission of this consciousness alone can alter the way in which your DNA operates. In many ways, the 22nd gene key is a sister transmission to the 55th gene key, and between the two of them, a great mystery lies hidden. Just as the 55th gene key describes the process of awakening as a genetic evolutionary process rising up within your body, the 22nd gene key describes the process of awakening as the direct intervention of divinity coming down into your body. Thus, it is through these two gene keys that the forces of evolution and involution finally come together. As you enter the field of the 22nd gene key, you are involving yourself in a magical process of invocation in which you directly invite a higher presence into your life. In this sense, the 22nd gene key needs to be approached in a prayerful and reverent manner, and in the spirit of nakedness. There is a great deal of information synthesized here. Let it descend into your DNA, and rather than attempting to grasp it with your mind, simply appreciate what an awesome transmission it holds. The subject of the 22nd gene key is the true meaning of suffering. As you begin to contemplate the suffering in your own life, you will perhaps come to see what an incredible blessing it holds. This simple and sweet realization can and will transform your life. Welcome to the embrace of the Great Mother. The 22nd shadow, dishonor, the Akashic Ocean. As we have already heard, the 22nd gene key is very special. There is no getting around this statement. Written into the evolutionary script are certain anomalies and divine cosmic surprises. In this respect, there is no other gene key to rival the 22nd. It is what makes the mythic drama of life so compelling. All great drama has but one pervasive universal theme, that of redemption. Whether or not a drama ends with redemption, it is always there as a longing inside our human hearts. Whenever we watch or hear a film or story, if there's no redemption at the end, our hearts feel cheated. Our minds may appreciate the art, but without a sense of atonement, there is the sense that a great truth has been misinterpreted. The 22nd gene key is about the truth of redemption. To those of a strong intellectual bias, it will inevitably seem fantastic or romantic, since it concerns the direct intervention of the divine in the ordinary world. The world that most of us see is not all that exists. We mostly live within very defined and closed-circuit parameters. Human beings generally have no notion of the great cosmic law that exists behind the world of form. One of the greatest of these is the law of divine memory. This law states that all thoughts, feelings, and acts are recorded everywhere within the body of the universe. Science now shows that we live in a vast information field of subatomic particles, some of which are so tiny that they actually pass through matter. This ocean of consciousness exists in many dimensions, and it responds to thoughts, acts, feelings, words, and even intentions. It is a vast quantum field that acts like a great memory bank, holding and recording every impression ever made. In the language of the ancients, it is often referred to as the Akashic record. The 22nd gene key is deeply connected to this law of divine memory. It is like a massive receiving dish that responds to the frequencies, sounds, and vibrations that it hears. And it hears everything. Like a cosmic, aeolian wind harp, reception is determined by the way in which the strings are tuned. In the case of the 22nd shadow, the strings of your DNA are twisted out of harmony, and your behavior and experience in the world is similarly misshapen. This is the shadow of dishonor. It only exists in the world because most human beings do not realize that all their acts are recorded. We do not realize that every act, thought, or feeling creates a ripple in the Akashic ocean, and that each ripple must and will one day return to its point of origin. The 22nd shadow is one of the most powerful emotional shadow gene keys in the human genome. It is highly passionate and sexual, with a huge emotional range, encompassing extreme highs of sweetness and extreme lows of violence. Because of its situation in the genome, it is directly or indirectly responsible for most of the relationship problems on our planet. However, before we journey any further into this profound gene key, it should be borne in mind that negative emotions in and of themselves are a natural part of the world in its current state. If they can be usefully transformed or sublimated into art, creativity, or service, their power is awesome. It is a matter of how much responsibility you can take for your own feelings. However, most people in the world today are utterly ruled by their emotions. And whenever you project negative emotional power at another being, you dishonor both yourself and the other person. Many so-called spiritual teachings suggest that you should subdue your negative emotional states in favor of sweeter, more virtuous frequencies. In fact, this is the basis of most of the great religions. But to subdue any state or feeling is to dishonor and distrust that feeling, which prevents acceptance. From the point of view of the 22nd gene key, every feeling, mood, or thought you have is put there directly by God for you to trust in it. Trusting this process is obviously not the same as acting it out. Trust is a powerful internal process that requires great courage. One of the tricks of the 22nd shadow is to con you into trying to change or fix your moods, rather than allowing them to simply pass through your system naturally. The fact is that you cannot reach higher states of consciousness without first passing through your own suffering. This is the true purpose of the Akashic field and of the 22nd gene key. They invite you to receive your own slice of suffering. If you do not take responsibility for your own thoughts, words, and deeds, the Akashic field simply sends the same forces back toward you again and again. This is the foundation of another of the great universal laws, the law of karma, which we will explore in more depth below. I'm going to take a break here just to say one of my favorite quotes that you will hear from me is, karma is a bitch, but only to those who are a bitch. No, I always say to my son, karma's a bitch only if you are one. So the truth is, if we lay good seeds and if we are kind and loving and honest and transparent, we may not always show up as our best self. We may not always be perfect, but if we're honest, that's one thing that is one of the most gracious things that we can be with others, is honest and transparent. So let's read about karma. This is on page 161 if you want to follow along. The three pure ones. As we enter deeper into the transmission field of the 22nd gene key and its shadow frequency, we encounter three streams of teachings concerning the nature of suffering left by three great world teachers or avatars. These three beings are actually one single being, which divided into three fractal aspects over the course of human evolution. Even though these were individual people or Magi, it is more helpful to see them as three fractal transmissions of the same truth. The first is Hermes Trismegistus, whose legacy dates back to the age of Atlantis, and whose name, meaning thrice great, directly reflects the triple nature of this transmission. Hermes goes by many names: Thought, Merlin, Fusei, to name a few. The teachings represented by this fractal is the teaching of alchemy or high magic. All true alchemy concerns the transmutation of suffering through alignment with the divine will. The second great teacher is Christ, whose fractal represents the transmutation of suffering through love and sacrifice. Finally, the third great teacher is the Buddha, whose fractal represents the transmutation of suffering through wisdom and compassion. Because all the 64 gene keys are influenced either directly or indirectly by the 22nd gene key, these three great fractals and their teachings form the essence of the gene keys revelation. The synthesis is made up of this great trinity of divine will, love, and wisdom. The cosmic mother. Beyond, behind, and between the great masculine trinity lays a fourth transcendent field of consciousness that is born from their interaction. This is the field of the divine cosmic mother, whose embrace encircles, protects, and contains all three of the great streams of the masculine avatar consciousness. Within humanity, the only direct portal to this great being is the 22nd gene key. The great cosmic mother holds the master key to all suffering and stands behind the teachings themselves. She is the triple mystery of the transmission. Although she is beyond teachings, her way is that of grace through suffering. Those who enter deeply enough into the three great paths through suffering, the alchemical, the sacrificial, the mindful, will eventually meet the great cosmic mother, since she represents the very spirit of grace that brings an end to human suffering. Contrary to the many depictions of the Holy Mother by religion, she is actually a highly ecstatic and sensuous field of energy. This is another way in which the 22nd shadow dishonors the true nature of the feminine through denying humanity the natural delights of sexual pleasure. As suffering comes to an end through her grace, true pleasure will dawn. The mother is a field whose Shakti or sexual liberated energy actually devours your separate self. And as she does so, you experience the highest of divine ecstasies pouring through your body and aura. This is no Sted grandmother figure, but a fully laden cosmic breast whose celestial milk will nourish the highest aspects of your being. As we explore the 22nd Siddhi of grace in more depth, we shall see how all-pervading is the field throughout creation. Once you come to realize that Hermes, Christ, and Buddha are in fact three aspects of the same Trinity, you will find that these three streams of teachings bring much clarity when fused together. Through Hermes and the Magi, the teachings of alchemy and transmutation came into the world. Buddha brought the teachings of karma and rebirth, and the Christ brought the teachings of forgiveness and atonement. As these transmissions have traveled down the centuries, they have become so distorted and confused that they barely resemble the simplicity of their original transmission. Over the following pages, we will reunite these three great teachings and streams of wisdom, exploring the underlying fabrics of the subtle worlds and processes that make up the human evolutionary journey. The Corpus Christi, the seven sacred bodies of humanity. There have been many systems devoted to the understanding of spiritual or occult science, those subtle layers of reality beyond the five senses. The great Oriental and Indian systems left us realms of intuitive insight laid down over thousands of years of direct experiences of the higher realms. Toward the end of the 19th century, much of this experience became accessible to the West, and many new streams of thinking converged. Theosophy and anthroposophy were born, and a new era of spiritual science came into being, leading into the modern New Age, where so many ideas and lineages from east to west, both mystical and scientific, collided and merged. It is an exciting, but also a confusing time, as a grand new synthesis emerges from this cosmic soup. One of the enduring insights of mysticism is the notion of the subtle bodies of the human aura. Depending on which system you follow, there are between 6 and 10 major subtle dimensions or planes upon which human beings function. These auric layers collectively make up what is known as the Corpus Christi, or body of Christ. Listed below are the 7 main layers of the human aura and their fundamental properties. The 7 sacred bodies of humanity. 1, physical. 2, astral. 3, mental. 4, causal. 5, Buddhic. 6, Atmic. And 7, monadic. Number 1, the physical body. The physical body forms the bedrock of incarnation. On the physical plane, the collective memory of humanity is stored in our DNA. The ultimate goal of human evolution is to merge the physical body completely with the monadic body, thus allowing the former to be assimilated back into its true essence. This corresponds to the 9th initiation, known as the glorification, which is discussed at the end of this gene key. The physical body has a subtle twin counterpart known as the etheric body, around which the science of true health is built. Over time, the physical body more closely reflects the state of your astral body and its emotions. Number 2, the astral body. The astral body is the layer of the human aura that collects, stores, and transmits all human emotion and desire, from the meanest to the loftiest. In the astral body, pleasure and pain are reflected as vibrational frequencies, which effectively divide the astral plane into hell realms and heaven realms. The astral body is most active during sleep, when it processes your daily urges through your dream life. As the next layer to the physical and etheric body, the astral body also has a huge effect on your health. After death, the astral body is directly confronted with the true nature of every single emotional impulse you had whilst alive in the physical body. Number 3, the mental body. The mental body exists at a higher frequency than your emotions and is constructed from your thinking life. The mental body is greatly influenced by the collective mental body of all humanity. This tends to pull our thinking down into the unfulfilled desires of the astral body. As your thinking turns to higher impulses, the mental body gradually disentangles itself from the astral body and takes on greater power. The mental body can also be used by lower consciousness to repress the natural impulses of the astral body, which can also lead to health problems at all levels. The causal body, number 4, sometimes dubbed the soul. The causal body directly corresponds to the physical body, but at a higher level. It stores the collected goodwill of the human soul as a memory signature written in light. Its finely tuned vehicle forms the storage hub for all the high frequency thoughts, words, and deeds that we have initiated during our many journeys in incarnation. After death, the lower 3 bodies disintegrate, and only that which is refined and pure is drawn up and retained in the causal body. The causal body responds to higher visions and archetypes that lie beyond language, but that can still be conveyed through direct transmissions to the lower 3 planes. As your causal body develops more lucidity, the higher bodies can use it as a means of directing higher and higher frequencies to the lower 3 bodies. In this respect, the causal body is the bridge between the lower and higher planes. Number 5, the Buddhic body. The Buddhic body is the higher octave of the astral body. As such, it reveals the pure truth that humanity and all the earth planes are in fact one single organism. Once your awareness is fully anchored in the Buddhic body, the causal body dissolves, and reincarnation in the normal sense is no longer necessary. It is through the Buddhic body that human beings have accessed the field of universal love and the higher ecstasies associated with enlightenment. It represents the 3rd feminine realm of the Holy Trinity, that of divine activity. Number 6, the Atmic body. As the higher octave to the mental body, the Atmic body allows human beings access to the higher evolutions outside the process of physical incarnation. Whilst the Buddhic body retains its connection to humanity through its compassion, the Atmic body brings awareness into the cosmic field of Christ consciousness, directly merging your awareness with the divine mind and heart, the second aspect of the Holy Trinity. It is through the Atmic body that the great avatar streams enter the world. It is also the realm of the Siddhis, the many miraculous manifestations of the divine. Number 7, the monadic body. Hardly a body in our normal sense of the word, The monad is the unbridled primal essence of divine consciousness itself. It enters the world of form through the causal body, which is the veil it takes on in order to enter the lower worlds, and corresponds to the first aspect of the Holy Trinity, divine will. The monadic body is present within every single atom on all planes, right down to the physical plane. However, until awareness has risen into the atmic body, the monadic cannot be fully expressed. When it does express, it condenses the atmic body and all the others along with it, revealing true divine essence as consciousness beyond understanding. At this stage, each of the lower three bodies, physical, astral, and mental, are absorbed into their high frequency counterparts, the causal, Buddhic, and Atmic, thus revealing the true mystical nature of the Trinity as three in one. Karma and reincarnation. The programming partner of the 22nd gene key is the 47th gene key, and there is much we can learn from this connection. The 47th gene key concerns the storage of world karma in human DNA. We have seen how the Akashic Ocean records all deeds through the 7 subtle bodies, and how this physical storage takes place through DNA. It is here in the human genetic code that the world wound is to be found. The combined suffering and negative thoughts, deeds, and words of every human being since the beginning of time are wound up in the non-coding or junk DNA inside your body. Depending on the unique genetic imprinting of your vehicle, certain aspects of the collective karma of humanity are highlighted in your DNA. And these determine your personal karma and the essential script of your life process. All this genetic storage takes place through the 47th gene key. The 22nd gene key, on the other hand, concerns those aspects of our subtle vehicles that survive death. It is vital at this point to realize these higher subtle bodies that are said to survive incarnation are really aspects of the Akashic Ocean itself. They are like memory slates that overlap each other at higher and higher levels of frequency. At the highest levels, all the layers dissolve to reveal a single field of consciousness. This is why reincarnation is only a relative truth. It is relative to the body in which consciousness happens to be localized. With this basic understanding, we can begin to understand one of the great keys to all human suffering: the inability to accept responsibility for our own thoughts, feelings, and actions. Life gives us precisely the imprinting we can handle. And if we dishonor ourselves or others, we actually increase our own suffering in the long run. The Bardo states. Many teachings exist from ancient cultures regarding the states of awareness that occur during and after the process of death. These states are often referred to as Bardo states. It is only when we combine the teachings of the Christ and the Buddha that this process becomes simple and clear. At the point of death, your various bodies separate. Your physical body obviously returns to the earth, but your astral and mental bodies, which contain all the feelings and thoughts from your current life, begin an alchemical process of separation and refinement. The negative low-frequency patterns are discarded, while the high-frequency patterns are retained and drawn up into the causal body. Because you no longer have a physical body, emotions in the bardos after death are experienced more intensely than anything we can possibly imagine. In fact, emotions and thoughts actually assume a life of their own, appearing as entities, angelic or demonic, whose frequencies either cause intense agony and terror or intense joy and ecstasy. This process in the Bardo states is one of pure redemption, in which the subtle aspects of your being meet the consequences of your actions, thoughts, and feelings while you were in form. Every aspect of your shadow consciousness is purged and cleansed. Human intuition recalls enough of this process to integrate it into our various cultural and religious beliefs. However, most human thinking makes a fundamental error here between the concept of retribution and redemption. At the shadow consciousness, humans do not see the true operation of grace through Christ's teachings of forgiveness. We do indeed atone for our sins in the afterlife, but only in order that we can be given a clean slate before our causal body returns once again. Because there is no defined sense of linear time in the Bardo states, it can indeed seem that our hell is eternal, just as it can seem that our heaven is eternal. 22nd gene key thus allows your causal body to become brighter and clearer from incarnation to incarnation, as you learn from your own suffering, both in form and out of form. At the shadow frequency, this process teaches you to accept your slice of group karma and offers you the opportunity to transmute it. This is what the Christ consciousness really is. It lies inside every single human being. We are forgiven over and over again. And the deeper we accept this grace, the more powerful the impulse for goodness becomes when we are in form. Eventually, our causal body becomes so resplendent that higher consciousness reaches down through it into the lower bodies, the mental, the astral, the physical bodies, and begins to impact them powerfully. Our thoughts turn more to God. Our emotions and desires become sacrificed for a higher cause, and eventually even our physical body becomes radiant as the various slates layered over it become transparent. Instant karma. In light of the above, karma can perhaps be understood in a new and beautiful way. Individual karma does not travel beyond a single lifetime, even though it does pass into the human collective. Every negative act is recorded for future processing in the bardos, and it is stamped into the collective DNA of humanity where it must eventually be redressed. Our karma at this level is shared since humanity is really one entity. Contrary to certain popular beliefs, the conditions of your external physical life do not reflect your actions in past incarnations. The level of transparency of your causal body attracts the incarnative environment it needs to further its own evolution, whether those conditions are seen as good or bad. At the higher levels of transparency, the causal body will often take on greater suffering because there is a greater compassion manifesting through its vehicle. This evolutionary incarnative process follows a specific archetypal sequence known as the 9 initiations, which we will explore at the end of the gene key, of this gene key. Even though karma is purified in the after-death state, it can manifest during a single lifetime. The law of cause and effect holds true on the material plane, too. However, the material plane is extremely dense, which means that we do not always see the results of our good or bad actions, thoughts, or words quickly. Having said this, we are now living in a time towards the end of great epoch, and at such times, natural laws are often seen to bend. The general collective consciousness of humanity has been gathering in the Akashic Ocean for millennia, and as such, it has effectively programmed the way in which that ocean functions. As our consciousness evolves more quickly, the turnaround of the law of divine memory is altering. In other words, karma is speeding up. Soon we will reach a point in our evolution where redemption will manifest even on the physical plane. This is the epoch that is coming, the time of healing the sacred wound that causes human suffering. This last point ought to give us all something to think about, regarding the way in which we handle our own emotions and thoughts. I'm going to read that again. This last point ought to give us all something to think about regarding the way in which we handle our own emotions and thoughts. Soon, none of us will be able to hide the truth of our acts or feelings. In the not too distant future, the 22nd shadow will create almost instantaneous karma whenever someone behaves dishonorably. This will utterly change the way we see ourselves and the world around us. Justice is a universal law. However, human beings at lower frequencies too often misinterpret this beautiful law as retribution or revenge. Because of grace, evolution cannot travel backwards, and it is not possible for form to devolve. It is all a matter of how finely tuned are the strings of your DNA. If you tune them to the lower frequencies, not only will you prevent yourself from experiencing joyousness, but you will also add to the weight of human karma stored in our collective ancestral DNA. In this sense, all human beings are given the feeling of free will in order to experience the consequences of their own deeds. But the key point here is that we do not learn through punishment and retribution, as so many religions would have us believe. We learn through joyousness and fulfillment, which comes through the 22nd gift, the wonderful gift of graciousness. Ah. The repressive nature of the shadow is proper. The 20-second shadow in its repressive phase gives rise to a deeply false sense of character. These people may appear outwardly very balanced, calm, and proper. They can often be extremely socially adept. Inwardly, however, their emotions are often seething. They can hide deep sexual lusts and often foster deep hatred and resentments. A good archetype of propriety is the Victorian age in Great Britain. On the surface, the general culture was one of politeness and control, when in fact, it concealed an underworld of repressed passion, sexuality, and aggression. All the repressive shadows are rooted in a deep-seated fear. The fear of the 20-second shadow is the fear of losing control. We should remember that no shadow is in itself bad. It matters how we deal with it. If you have a repressive nature, you can use it positively to transform inward negativity rather than letting it stew and stew until it erupts. However, if there is no sense of virtue in these people, this shadow can conceal the most violent and explosive of natures. Reactive nature, inappropriate. The reactive version of the 20-second shadow manifests as inappropriate or antisocial behavior. These people cannot control their emotional reactions. They often lead fairly disreputable but passionate lives, wearing their hearts on their sleeves. Their actions and behaviors are usually destructive, initially more towards others than themselves. Even in its shadow, this archetype has such creative power that these people can produce wonderful art or music, but so often their inability to handle their own passions and treat others with respect leaves their private lives in tatters. Above all, these people have an inability to listen, either to others or to themselves. Thus, even when their intentions are good, they are doomed to be mistimed and misunderstood. Oh, you guys, we made it to the gift. Oh, 50 minutes of shadow work. Oh, wow. Right. If you're still with me, we're going to move on to the gift. We're on page 168. The gift of graciousness. The milk of human kindness. Oh. The 22nd gift is the gift of graciousness. It is a rare and beautiful quality that has a profound effect on everyone it touches. Graciousness means that whatever you do in life, you always consider the feelings of others. This is one of the great social gifts. And if it is a part of your hologenic profile, then your whole life is geared towards impacting people's emotions in a positive way. Even if this gift is not a primary aspect of your profile, it still has a huge capacity to completely transform your life and the lives of everyone you meet. 22nd gift is not just about stirring people's feelings, but also about touching their hearts and even their souls. Graciousness means that you act with grace and consideration in everything you do. Just like its shadow, the 22nd gift is extremely powerful in its effect upon others. As the shadow can leave another feeling utterly dishonored and disturbed, the gift of graciousness can greatly help others become free of their negatively charged emotions. There is a profound kindness at the core of this gift that can elevate others beyond their normal consciousness to states of love, laughter, or tears. For this reason, many people connected with the gift assume artistic, musical, or vocal roles in life, where they can influence others through their natural social grace. As we saw with the shadow, people at the lower aspects of this gene key do not acknowledge their accountability for what they say or do. At the gift level, however, you begin to see that all is interconnected, all things and all people. You realize at a deep level that we are all being listened to, and you inherently know that if you do someone an injustice, it will come back to you. This in turn means that other people feel deeply understood and listened to around this gift. This profound awareness of karma means that a great deal of your work in life will lie in the sphere of relationships and emotions. At the gift frequency of this gene key, you learn to temper your own emotions, releasing them safely without disrespecting others or yourself. With the gift of graciousness, you begin to disperse your own karma and that of your ancestral DNA. This is a huge task, and it means that even though your relationships may be deeply challenging, you always maintain a frequency of respect around others. The 22nd gift also ensures that you balance your respect of others with a healthy dose of self-respect. By not allowing yourself to become a victim of someone else's emotions. This delicate balance between service and self-love marks you as someone who profoundly understands the power of emotional suffering. Because of this, others will look to you for guidance and authority. The gift of graciousness might also be called the gift of soul. It is the ability to live life to the full, holding no feelings back, whilst at the same time having deep respect for the feelings of others. If you are fortunate enough to tap into the higher qualities of the 22nd gift, your life can be filled with art, music, romance, deep relationships, and enchantment. But above all else, this is the gift of living life from a place of deep love and soul. The Venus sequence, a direct transmission of graciousness. In the summer of 2004, during a rare transit of the planet Venus across the front of the sun, a profound knowledge came into the world, called the Venus sequence. It uses the 64 gene keys in combination with astrological data to pinpoint the exact patterns of karma that an individual takes on during each incarnation. The Venus sequence reveals karma as a genetic sequence that unfolds throughout your life. Your ability to accept this karma with graciousness determines how quickly and easily you transcend your own suffering. Furthermore, as the sequence of your own karma unfolds, it is transmuted. It reveals the higher frequencies that allow you to expand your consciousness and attain your higher states. The Venus sequence is the great science of human suffering, showing us precisely how every human being shares in world karma, or the sacred wound, through being genetically imprinted with it at the point of our conception. As we unravel our Venus sequence, we discover an inner path of awakening behind our suffering. This culminates in our having to embrace one of the 6 essential core human wounds. The 6 core wounds of humanity. 1. Repression. 2. Denial. 3. Shame. 4. Rejection. 5. Guilt. And 6. Separation. These 6 patterns are laid down in a unique sequence in your DNA. Once you have access to your own sequence, you will finally understand the basic script of your life process, particularly as regards to your relationships, where your karma is mostly played out. The wound itself is directly tied to the lower 3 bodies, the physical, emotional, and mental. Through clear mental understanding and a gentle emotional process of self forgiveness, the very patterns that cause human beings so much pain actually lead us directly to liberation through the higher 3 bodies. This is both a process of evolution described in depth in the 55th gene key and a process of involution whereby the higher frequencies within your DNA are being activated through the agency of grace. However, the prime teachings of the Venus sequence concerns showing another human being through relationship how to take responsibility for their own feelings instead of projecting them onto others. This ability is the very essence of the 22nd gift of graciousness, and it is preparing humanity to make the great leap into freedom, the 55th gift. Wow. Wow. 22nd Siddhi, grace. The 7 sacred seals and the biological apocalypse. In the sacred book of Revelation, St. John the Divine wrote down his famous descriptions of the apocalypse, so-called Judgment Day, where all world karma is finally redeemed and all human suffering brought to an end. Despite centuries of misunderstandings by religion, Revelation of St. John contains some of the greatest initiatic secrets ever written down. One of these secret teachings is known as the 7 sacred seals. In allegorical form, St. John describes the sequential process of the opening of each of the 7 seals by an angel, and the subsequent unfolding of the 7 stages of the apocalypse itself. It is not until the final 7th seal is opened that evil is conquered and humanity ascends to a higher plane. When we decipher this allegory, we can see that each of the 7 seals and its accompanying angel represents an agent of grace, an involving spiritual force or siddhi, ascending from the higher vehicles and directly affecting human DNA. The apocalypse is really a biological phenomenon, a judgment day within our genes as a new species of human prepares to be born. With the matrix of the 64 gene keys, there are 6 keys that directly reflect this involving power of grace. The 7th being the 22nd Siddhi, grace itself. The 7 sacred seals and their respective siddhis. The first seal, divine will, the 40th siddhi. The second seal, omniscient, 17th siddhi. The third seal, universal love, the 25th siddhi. The fourth seal, epiphany, the 43rd siddhi. The fifth seal, forgiveness, the 4th siddhi. The 6th seal, truth, the 63rd siddhi. And the 7th seal, grace, the 22nd siddhi. The 22nd siddhi of grace always works through the field of these 6 siddhis or divine attributes. Thus, we can see that each of these sacred seals is a divine code sent down from higher consciousness to heal a specific aspect of the sacred wound. Just as there are 6 aspects to the sacred wound, so there are 6 divine responsible. Just as there are 6 aspects to the sacred wound, so there are 6 divine aspects responsible for healing that wound. This process takes place both individually and collectively and is described below. The opening of the first seal, divine will. The first seal is opened by the siddhi of divine will, which heals human repression. Repression is the primary wound of humanity, since it refers to the very storage of karma in the DNA of the physical body. It is because of the layers and layers of karma in your DNA that the higher subtle bodies are obscured from your awareness. Karma is a deep physical tension expressed as fear, and it inhabits every cell of your body. Only through the grace of the 40th Siddhi can this karma be transmuted. The 40th Siddhi represents divine will, which is the only force powerful enough to transform all the layers of tension. Divine will actually means complete relaxation. So as this seal opens throughout humanity, the physical body finally comes into complete relaxation. As it relaxes progressively into deeper and deeper states, the higher subtle bodies can express themselves fully. In the end, your body becomes nothing more than a completely relaxed instrument of the divine will. Because this seal has to do with releasing core tension from the physical body, at a collective level, it will eventually eradicate all disease from our planet. The opening of the second seal, omniscience. The second seal is opened by the 17th Siddhi of omniscience, and its target is the wound of denial. Denial is the external expression of fear as anger and aggression. If your core wound is denial, then you are unable to see and take responsibility for your own negative behavior. The more someone tries to show you your denial, the more powerful it becomes. Throughout humanity, this wound expresses itself throughout fundamentalism, violence, and sexuality. The only force that can break denial is omniscience, which is what occurs even if only for a split second. Your vision is opened and your higher bodies literally look down into your mental and astral bodies. This notion of being seen through comes as a deep shock to the recipient, who usually experiences a complete and permanent rebirth after the event. Once you can see your own denial, it is no longer denial. It is through the opening of the second seal that certain people experience sudden conversions or higher callings. At the collective level, this seal will bring great healing to human sexuality and will eventually extinguish violence. Opening of the third seal, universal love. The third seal is opened through the 25th Siddhi of universal love. This is one of the most pervasive forms of divine grace. And as it reaches down into human beings, it triggers a huge wave of release that can spread from person to person like a positive virus. This seal heals the human wound of shame. Shame is brought about by a profound feeling of worthlessness. It is out of this feeling of deep shame that the whole world of hierarchy and competitiveness has come about. As the Siddhi of universal love descends into humanity, our urge to escape our own shame through selfishness and greed gives way to feelings of great joy and self-love. It is this self-love that leads to altruism and philanthropy rather than competition. Shame is obsessed with hiding, but universal love shows you that no matter where you hide, love is still there. It is through the opening of this third seal that you finally begin to enjoy life for what it is, rather than always chasing some ideal future. As humanity experiences this opening, it will lead to a complete breakthrough in the way we use money and a final ending to human greed. Opening of the fourth seal, Epiphany. The fourth seal is opened by the 43rd Siddhi of Epiphany, symbolized by the descent of the dove of peace. Epiphany heals the wound of rejection, the wound that keeps human beings from opening their hearts fully to one another. Epiphany is actually a shattering experience in which the higher three bodies, symbolized by the gifts of the three Magi of the Christian Epiphany, explode through into the lower bodies, opening the heart from inside. As this seal is open, the many barriers that humans have erected will begin to fall away. Our countries, borders, armies, and all aspects that attempt to protect and defend us from each other. On an individual level, the fourth seal opens the potential for you to lead a truly romantic life, where you need hide nothing from anyone, and in which you wear your heart openly on your sleeve. Once human beings overcome the fear of external rejection, they become pure agents of grace through their friendliness, openness, and honesty. On a collective level, the seal opens the heart center in humanity and manifests as kindness. The Siddhi will bring an end to world poverty. The opening of the fifth seal, forgiveness. The fifth seal is opened through the fourth Siddhi of forgiveness. As one of the great involving Siddhis of grace, forgiveness has a special purpose: to work its way backward into the collective DNA of humanity, releasing the many karmic blocks that plague the various gene pools. The fifth seal is specifically targeted to heal the pattern of unconscious guilt upon which karma is built. Guilt is a kind of karmic debt which exists between one person and another, or even between one race and another. As the power of forgiveness works its way into the human genome, so many ancestral curses will finally be lifted. This seal in particular has the capacity to create world peace as individuals and whole nations forgive others the debts they are owed. The grace that comes with forgiveness has unprecedented power and brings a sense of true justice back to humanity. Forgiveness is a direct manifestation of the fifth body, the Buddhic body, which has the capacity to literally burn karma out of our DNA. At a collective level, the releasing of all this world karma will bring an end to war. The opening of the sixth seal, truth. As the final stage in the sequence, the seventh is the glorious afterglow. The sixth seal delivers the coup de grace as it heals the ultimate human wound, that of separation. Because to most of us, the higher realities of our true nature are obscured. We have essentially been separated from the divine for most of our lives. Because we feel this separation so keenly, we constantly seek fulfillment in the outer world. Ironically, it is this very seeking that keeps us from experiencing our true nature, which is to be found deep within our own suffering. The opening of the sixth seal is made possible through the 63rd Siddhi, truth. Truth is something you become one with, rather than something you find out there. Through the opening of this seal, every individual will come to know their true nature as an aspect of one vast consciousness. Absolute truth is a collective phenomenon that will one day be fully embodied as the whole of humanity spontaneously recognizes itself as a single divine organism. Only then, at that marvelous moment, will all human seeking and striving come to an end. So it is that this 63rd Siddhi, through its direct realization and expansive embodiment, will bring a crushing end to the greatest human curses, indifference. The opening of the seventh seal, grace. In the book of Revelations, the opening of the seventh seal is surrounded by layer upon layer of rich apocalyptic imagery. Unless you are well versed in alchemical symbolism, it will be very difficult for you to penetrate to the true meaning of this wonderful prophetic transmission. There is, moreover, a demarcation between the opening of the first 6 seals and the opening of the 7th seal. The 7th seal involves 7 angels and 7 trumpets, which sound the final judgment of humanity. The 7th seal is the spirit of grace itself, represented by the 22nd Siddhi. And grace descends only after great transmutation. It is like the rainbow that appears after the great storm, bringing complete transfiguration, the 47th Siddhi. On an individual level, the 7th seal represents the final absorption of all the previous 6 layers of the human aura into the monadic body, the primordial essence. At this level, even the flood of revelations and high frequencies of the Atmic body must be surrendered into the void of what the mystics term the 7th heaven. We are told in the book of Genesis that God rested on the 7th day of creation, and the 7th-fold pattern is reflected in many other cultural traditions. In the Hindu system, when the 7th chakra, known as Shashara, blooms, the divine essence can finally reunite with the material plane. Saint John describes this event as the coming of a new heaven and a new earth. As the 7th monadic plane absorbs the final vestiges of our separatedness, each plane below and its frequencies disintegrate to be reintegrated as the true monadic essence. This is the meaning of the sound. This is the meaning of the sounding of the 7 trumpets, which represent the 7 layers of frequencies of the human aura. At the collective level, the opening of the 7th seal refers to the coming of the final human epoch and the return of the human race to its original Edenic state. It is the great trumpet fanfare announcing the redemption of all beings. The meaning of spiritual initiation. The final aspect of the transmission through the 22nd gene key follows the story of the individual human soul itself. All human stories enact the same mythic process or storyline, albeit in infinite and uniquely diverse forms. As our incarnative process recycles into new and different forms, each activating different inferences of human DNA during each lifetime, our great transgenerational story deepens. Like all great drama, we are weaving a multidimensional tapestry of different colors, tones, and hues from the rich fabric of experience. Throughout every incarnative story, however, stands one immutable question that keeps us coming back: the question of our suffering. It is our changing relationship to this question that marks the various stages in our journey throughout time and space. There are 9 major landmarks along the way, and they are known as the 9 portals of planetary initiation. Spiritual initiation can mean many different things to people. The word initiation itself might conjure up all sorts of mystical rites you may have witnessed or heard of. Certainly, in tribal societies, initiation is seen as a rite of passage, particularly for young men who must perform some kind of test at a certain threshold age before entering full manhood. Other ancient teachings and/or societies have systems of initiation that are performed as elaborate rituals at certain stages in an aspirant's life. In truth, however, spiritual initiation is a natural, organic process that occurs to all human beings at a certain point in their lives. In essence, initiation refers to the natural unfolding stages of all spiritual awakening. Initiation occurs to you no matter what you are doing in your life, and once it has begun in earnest, when you have passed through the first initiation, it is irreversible and inevitable. I think we'll have to come back to this one. The 9 portals of planetary initiation. Yeah, we're going to come back to this one. Been a beautiful journey with you. Thank you for your patience as I stumbled with some of the words. As I was dipping in and out of my consciousness, I was almost falling asleep, almost in a trance. I didn't even realize some of what I read. I'm going to have to go back and read it and absorb it consciously. But a lot of that just was coming through without even realizing that I was reading the words. And it's the farthest I've gotten through the 22nd gene key. So thank you for being with me on this journey. And I'm so grateful to have made it to the Siddhi and to really be here for it all. And there are so many interesting, interwoven, and intricate parts for me personally. A lot of those 7 sacred seals are actually in my gene keys. So it's quite fascinating what I've just discovered. Part of it I've already encountered and I've already embodied, and I've already been able to create in all the ways that I show up, actually. But this did not happen until I actually looked myself in the mirror and recognized that I didn't recognize myself. 2020 was a massive reset for me, which I know it was for many, many people. We were finally forced to slow down and look in the mirror and face ourselves and face our relationships, all of them, and question ourselves. What am I doing here? How am I being here? So many of us were just shocked back into our bodies and out of our minds, into our hearts and out of our heads and out of our guilt and shame and all the ways we move through the world, through suffering, creating suffering for everybody. Instead of just being honest with ourselves and instead of just being true to the people around us, we would show up because we thought we had to, in a way that hurt us and others. And we just kept going until no end, drilling ourselves into the ground, working hard. At some point, something had to give. And now it almost feels like everything that's happened since, it's like we're facing our collective karma one by one, drama by drama, news report by Instagram story or Facebook reel or whatever, all the social media platform ways of sharing our own worlds. I remember when I was a kid, all you ever knew about what was going on in the world is what the one specific channel that you had told you. And maybe you heard it on the radio, the same story over again, or maybe a different version of that same story. And now you don't know what's true because you go online and there's evidence to every aspect and every perspective. So unless you are deeply, deeply attuned to the inner truth, the one truth that streams through us when we're attuned and aligned, there is no searching your way into the answer. The answer lies within us all. That's why it is so, so important to do our deep inner work. If we don't approach our shadows with this level of grace and acceptance and willingness, this beautiful, raw willingness. I love how the 22nd Gene Key describes it as nakedness. You must be willing to come naked in front of yourself. First and foremost, in front of yourself, and look in the mirror and say, I love you. I don't know. And slowly, that part inside of you, your soul, will come out and meet you. And it will love you back more than you've ever known love could be. It will love you so deeply, so intimately, so unconditionally. It will show you the way. It will take you through some of your deepest suffering, some of your most challenging emotions. but remember to feel, because feeling is just energy moving through us. It's just energy in motion. Emotions want to be felt. If you're not going to feel, you are doing your human experience such a disservice. Feeling is in the depths of pure joy. And we must be willing to feel deep sadness, deep heart-wrenching, gut-churning, just gasping for air. Ugly crying sadness. That level of vulnerability. That level of vulnerability will heal our planet. And it's not to get stuck in the sadness. Neuroscience shows us that it takes 90 seconds to feel, at most 2 minutes, in the process of feeling through the emotion. If you're stuck on the spin cycle, that means that you're not actually feeling. That means that you're back in your head thinking, feeling sorry for yourself, thinking over and over again the way that, certain forms of therapy keep you looping in the problem. That's not the point. The point is to feel, not cycle through the story. Feel. In one side and out the other, allowing it to clear. That feeling and that emotion, when it moves through, it frees us and breaks open every single portal, so that we become a clear channel for the divine. That level of willingness, that level of showing up, is what is being asked of us right now. I never expected to share this. I never expected to share this in such a beautiful, deep, meaningful way. And I share it here and there in little bursts when it comes through, and messaging and the stories that come. And my purpose here on this planet is to be that spirit mama, is to hold, is to share that unconditional love. I see people in their essence and I reflect it back to you so that you can fully claim who you are here in this lifetime. And it is such a gift. And I've been doing it my entire life, not knowing that this is possible. And of course, in romantic relationships, it's totally discombobulating. It's the best word I can use. Because you have these unrealistic expectations of people to actually to want to become their highest self. And it is elusive. And it is so beautiful to have deep, unconditional love for people who others see. And they're like, what do you see in this person? And you just see everything. You just see magic and rainbows and all the potential. And it's just, such a gift. Yeah, some people say until you take the rose-colored glasses off. Well, let me tell you, Mama's got a big fuse. What a gift it is to love this way. Truly. It's bedtime. For me, it is 3:42 in the morning Pacific time. Now March the 9th. And I look forward to following up on the rest of the 22nd gene key, if it permits, and if life calls you to follow up on the 22nd gene key on your own. This is the beautiful book. It is the anniversary edition of the Gene Keys. There is a much more affordable version on Amazon. And I really highly recommend that you take the time to contemplate. Contemplation is the gift of slowing down and allowing the truth to come through you as you open up, as you become more transparent. And the way to do that is to really, truly accept yourself as you are, in all of your shadows and all of your gifts. That way the siddhi can come through. And the way that I have understood the line is that it's in that way, in that pattern or emotion or energy or place in the body or place in society, that the gift comes out of the shadow. It emerges just like a lily, just like a lotus flower from the swamp. It emerges right when you least expect it. The beauty of the lotus flower. And you wake up in the morning and you see the pond covered in water lilies and these beautiful lotus flowers, covered with dragonflies. And that is the most beautiful gift of the Gene Keys. Richard Rudd talks about the dragonfly and its transformation. It is so, so beautiful. And I'm taken back visually. I'm going back to my father's house in Sunshine Coast, where he has a beautiful lily pond. And in the summer, there are dragonflies. And it is the most magical place. I could go there and sit by the pond for hours and hours and hours. And then people start looking for me and I hear my name. And what? And it is the one place I can just get lost forever. So beautiful, so peaceful, so calm. It reminds me of my grandmothers. They used to take me to the lake down the street where I grew up in Chilliwack. And my grandma used to tell me about the lilies, how they hide at night and they come back up in the morning when it's sunshine comes out. And yeah. All right, it is time. Thank you. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for contemplating, for listening, for inner standing through this journey. Thank you for showing up for it all with appreciation for all that you are and all that you do.